Hey everyone, once again, this is another episode of the Business of Education. My name is Kyle Walgren, and this is where we highlight what's going on in the education technology space and try and bring value to our viewers by talking to other founders, other educators, and other VCs and see how we can help bridge the gap. This week's guest is Aatash Parikh, and he's the founder of Inkwire. Aatash, thank you for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me on, Kyle. Excited to be here.
Atosh, give us a quick overview on Inkwire, and then we'll kind of dive into a little bit of your background, but tell us about Inkwire.
Yeah, sounds great. So, Inkwire, our goal is to help every student build a portfolio of amazing projects and work that can help connect them to future opportunities. So, that's kind of our goal, and we do that by working with students, teachers, school districts, all of the above.
So you started off, it sounds like, in the education space. We're teaching
hmm
computer science, middle school computer science in Oakland Unified.
hmm
You went there, moved on to Google, Khan Academy. Now you're on your own thing. Tell us about becoming a teacher and how that influenced you to make the decisions you are now.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I actually started out as a software engineer and
Okay.
transitioned into teaching. Um, Initially because I wanted to work in education technology. I wanted to create something, but felt like I needed to spend a little time exploring ideas, but also just gaining empathy for the teacher experience, student experience. I didn't really plan to be a teacher. I did end up working in schools for a little bit, and then I got kind of roped into teaching. Ended up doing it for longer than I expected. Uh, because I was enjoying it, but it was also quite difficult. And it was a combination of things that led to the ideas behind Inquire. I think a lot of the ideas started out before I was teaching, just from learning and thinking about the role of technology, but they were made a little bit more concrete and definitely modified based on what I saw as the constraints and realities of the classroom.
So you're actually the first person I've ever talked to that went from a good paying job into education. So that's a first. But a lot of people kind of had the same story, that you were in education and you just got roped into it and you enjoyed making an impact. So you do share that with a lot of our other guests, but what a lot of our other guests can't say is that they ever spent time at Google and, more interesting to me, Khan Academy. Talk about the
Mhm.
transitions, to Google, what you learned there, and then definitely I'd like to touch on Khan Academy.
Mhm. Um, I worked at Google pretty early in my career, and it was kind of my first big tech experience. And loved it. Always have loved the energy of Silicon Valley and the idea that you can create things that touch millions of people, and Google does that at the largest scale. What I really liked about an organization like Khan Academy, though, is it's a quarter of a percent of the size of Google. And what that means is everyone who's there um, is really on the same page and aligned around a common cause. And it felt like that was a much better fit for the kind of environment I wanted to be in. I liked the smaller organization. I liked folks working on um, something with a social bent to it, or trying to address a specific problem in the world. Um, so that's what I loved about Khan Academy, and that really kickstarted my excitement about EdTech.
The thing about Khan Academy is that it's kind of, I'm not going to say it was like one of the first ed tech companies, but it was really the first like well known
Yeah,
online
yeah,
education type platform. Um, and identified by like really noble people. Elon Musk talks about the greatness, the great things that Khan Academy
yeah.
has done, and then actually, I think if I remember right, he used some of what he learned or seen with Khan Academy to build his school for SpaceX. Is that am I correct there?
That's you know, I didn't make that connection, but I wouldn't be surprised because I've read a little bit about his school, and then I know yeah, he knows Sal Khan Academy and was quite in touch and quite supportive of their work. So it makes sense that he would have taken some ideas and inspiration from there.
Yeah, so let's get back to Inkwire.
Yeah.
Inkwire's motto is what matters in tomorrow's economy will not be your GPA, it will be your portfolio of work. I love that. I love that.
Hmm. Hmm.
I don't think that kids are spending enough, or I think kids are spending too much time in school right now, not
Hmm.
necessarily learning all the right things. I think that the education system's a little old school or outdated or needs to be updated a little bit. And if you look at like the hours of operation within schools, it was kind of there to babysit, you know, factory workers, but we've changed a lot today. Walk us through Inkwire and how it's going to make an impact, because I love the motto that you guys are focused on.
Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate that. And I think when you were calling out earlier about my journey from actually being in tech, being in software engineering, being in the professional world, and then transitioning into teaching, I think that definitely influenced my perspective on what skills mattered and what how to better align what's happening in school to what's happening in a professional context. And and that's why I really loved my time in San Diego at High Tech High, which is the first school that I actually worked at. And High Tech High is known for project based learning. So, this idea that students are creating real world products, they have an audience beyond the classroom that they're sharing that work with. They're really making an impact in the broader community, and not just completing an assignment to get a grade from their teacher. Um, and so that was a lot of the inspiration for this idea of the portfolio, because it felt like if you're doing these kinds of projects, the only way to really showcase that is through a portfolio. And I felt like if we could build something to help students build their portfolios, maybe we could bring other schools and other uh, educators along that journey of doing more projects, doing more real world learning in the classroom.
I love that. How far along in your journey, your startup journey, are you guys with Inkwire? How far down the road are you guys?
So we're about 2 years into our journey. We have around 30 schools on our platform. I still think we're quite early though in our journey, and we are starting to think about how do we now expand beyond the early adopters and the believers of what we're doing, and try and make our our product, our work more accessible to a larger audience. So we're trying to bridge that gap now. It's kind of where we're at.
So how typically would a school implement a product like yours, right? Because they're still,
Yeah,
you know, having to teach the fundamentals of
yeah,
what the requirements are, but how would they implement a product like yours?
yeah. It's a good question. So we've had a few different types of customers. The earliest adopters are the ones that are already doing some of this real world deeper learning in their schools, and so for them, adoption of Inquire is a little bit more natural, right? They can kind of move some of the processes already in place into our platform. We've kind of built something that can stand alongside your learning management system. Um, so you can start to design learning on there. Students log in, upload work, um, and like I was saying, the more you're already doing these projects in the classroom, the easier it is to adopt. Now, what we're trying to do is think about how to lower the barriers of entry for more educators. Um, let's say you don't already do project-based learning in your classroom, but you want to start helping your students do more real-world work. So that's something we're still figuring out. But one of the things we've been building more recently is kind of leveraging generative AI to help teachers design projects or design curriculum. And we're seeing that maybe as a bridge to kind of reach more people. Um, so I'll pause there, but yeah, I think it's a big kind of challenge for us to figure out adoption and whether, we go straight to the school level, district level, or do we kind of go straight to the teacher, and how do we navigate that?
No, I love that. And I think that's a question that a lot of, ed tech founders are asking,
Yeah.
do you go top down, bottom up? How do you
Yeah.
find this? And then ultimately the biggest challenge is teacher adoption. You know what I mean? They've got
Yeah.
100 different things on their plate, and we're all trying to sell them a new product and not offering them any more money to do it. How do you think being a teacher early on helped you with creating how your product was going to fit in the classroom?
Yeah. I think the first piece is, to your point, you just recognize how much teachers are being asked to do, and so you start to really think about creative adoption strategies. Not that I've necessarily figured that one out yet. I do think the bigger thing for me that really was influential is being in a room with students and having them shape the design of the product and the tool that I was building, because I did start building it while I was still in the classroom, and I used it in my own classroom. And as I'm designing the product, I'm visualizing specific students I had and how they might interact with it, and getting their feedback once we actually put it in front of them. So it's shaped a lot of, I would say, the design of the tool and different kind of nuanced pieces that may go unnoticed by somebody who hasn't worked with students or worked in a classroom.
What do you
But when
think
you
some of
show,
the,
yeah,
go
yeah,
ahead.
no, go ahead.
What do you think some of the biggest challenges are that you're
Yeah,
facing right now? And what's keeping you up at night?
yeah. I think the biggest challenge, it still comes down to how do we reach more folks with what we're doing, and how do we position our solution in a way that's accessible to um, to a larger number of folks, kind of to your point, that are busy, um, while still staying true to our mission and purpose of the kind of change we want to make, in schools, in education. Um, I think that's a tension. You want to build something that's simple, easy to use, fits into existing workflows, but part of what we're trying to do is also change workflows and change what people are doing. And so, um, navigating the like behavior change aspect of what we're trying to do, as well as, we have a product to sell and we want as many people to use it as possible. So finding that product market fit, but also like impact fit, is something that we're still figuring out.
It
Um,
seems like a lot of tech founders are trying to, are struggled with that same thing, is like,
yeah,
how do we make sure that we're giving enough back to the teachers? Especially, you're coming from the space, you're not paid at the top of it, and they're adding more and more kids to the classroom all the time. How do you see technology playing a role, not just your technology, but technology as a whole, in simplifying the classroom? And if you were to talk straight to a teacher, what do you think you could say about, getting them to let their guard down and accept and adopt technology instead of being challenged or
hmm
intimidated by technology?
hmm yeah, good question. I think, um, what I, what I like what I would like to tell a teacher is to really think about what their biggest strengths as an educator are, what their passions as an educator are, and how can the technology help them to do more of those things and less of the other things, right? Just as an example, one of the biggest strengths that's common amongst teachers is the ability to form relationships with students, to be able to connect with them one on one, to understand what their goals and their interests are, and to design experiences around them. And a lot of things that are part of the job of a teacher take away from being able to do that. And I think that's why folks are excited about AI and some of these other things that can help streamline some of the more mundane tasks. But I think that's the promise of technology in general: is how do we take out the pieces that aren't your core competency, and let the technology handle those, so you can do what you do best. Right? That's kind of what I would say.
No, I like that answer. I actually really like that answer. Part of the show that we like to touch on is networking and trying to bring as much value. I've been very blessed with how Ed Soma's growing and the amount of people that we've got to talk to, and the quality of people that we got to talk to. So I always try and like, you know, use my network to bring value to other people's opportunities. What are some of the things that you're being challenged with right now that, you know, if somebody watching this could be like, hey, I could help with that? What are some challenges being a young founder that you're being faced with now that you'd love to have a conversation around?
Hmm. Um, yeah, it's a good question. I think one thing that's always helpful is being able to connect with more educators that are struggling with the pieces that that we are trying to help with, as a company and as a product. One of the things that I think folks are thinking a lot about right now is strategy around something like AI and how to prevent misuse of AI and what their policies are, and while also leveraging the positives of it to save teacher time, to rethink pedagogy. And so that's something that I'm trying to connect with educators on, with schools and districts on. So um, any kind of insight into that world, or folks that we should talk to, would be helpful. But otherwise, it's just like the general founder stuff, right? It's like sharing our story, sharing what we're doing, and just supporting each other.
No, I love that, and I get value. The reason I do these podcasts is because every time I have a conversation with a founder, you know, somebody like minded, I learn something new. You know, the way that they're looking at their product versus how we look at our product. It's always informative for me. Um, One of the things that, like I touched on just a moment ago, is networking. How have you found your network helped you in this? How important is your network to you, and how do you leverage your network? And if you were to give advice to, you know, somebody just getting into the space, what advice would you give them on networking and leveraging their network?
Yeah. Um, yeah, network is so massive, and for me, the network has helped me for all of my initial customers. Were from my network.
Mm-hmm.
Being able to share what I'm building, ask for introductions, um, having and then being able to get folks to take a bet on something so early, really relied on the strength of those relationships.
Right.
As we navigate the fundraising process, I'm learning more and more how much, your network is really the bridge to conversations and introductions. And so, you know, having that reminder again. And for me, I think, as someone that likes to kind of be heads down and more focused on the building, and and sometimes thinks that the networking side, you know, may not be directly impactful. It's something that I have to carve out opportunities for, be strategic about joining the right communities. I've joined some networks that have been really helpful to be a part of, that are founder networks or EdTech networks. I know we met at the EdTech Week conference hosted by StartEd, which has been a great network. Um, and so being able to find those folks and those communities to be a part of, and I think enjoying that journey, right, and enjoying that process, because yeah, we need as much kind of support and camaraderie as we can get as well. So I think, yeah, and just knowing how much it's valuable.
I, I've gotten, I've met so many people through the Start Ed conference, and
Yeah.
uh, I can't express enough gratitude to that organization, to the value that they're
Hmm.
bringing to the education technology space, because it is very hard to navigate. As you mentioned, a lot of your sales are relationship driven,
Hmm.
um, especially early on. And then raising money in ed tech is like, seems like the hardest
Yeah.
space, you know, to get people to invest into. And to me, it seems like it's the biggest no brainer space to invest into, because our kids are our future. But for some reason, you know, VCs caution on, or, you know, side on the edge of caution when it comes to investing in the ed tech space for sure. You mentioned, you know, on working on your raise. Are you guys actively raising money right now? Where are you guys at in that journey?
we're preparing to actively start fundraising in the next couple of months. So we are starting to have some conversations, starting to put our story and our deck together. Um, but yeah, we're kind of building up our energy and preparations to embark on that
Well,
somewhat
raising
scary journey.
capital is probably the hardest thing I've ever done.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And early on, I thought that it was going to be like a one and done type thing. Now we're working on our third
Hmm.
small round of funding. You know, we raised a pre-seed and a seed, and now we're doing a seed extension just because the landscapes have changed, and what used to be a Series A round of funding is totally different today than what
Hmm.
it was even 24 months ago. So that landscape changes. So being familiar and understanding what the financial landscapes look like is, you know, in my opinion, what a lot of founders really need to focus on. Understanding advice that I could give is really start focusing on building relationships prior to needing to raise money,
Hmm.
because it does take a long time uh, to build that trust and to build those relationships, and those introductions go so much farther from a warm introduction than a cold email off the internet. So um,
Hmm.
really dive into investing in relationships and set time aside to do that, if I can give any advice.
Hmm.
um,
Hmm.
you know uh, and then, you know, go to some events like Started. There's so many
Hmm.
valuable people there.
Hmm.
But Aatash, I appreciate you jumping on the show. If anybody that watched the show wanted to reach out and ask you more questions about your product, maybe, or maybe they're interested in investing in a product like yours, how would they find you?
So you can go to our website for Inkwire, inkwire.co, inkwire.co. And my email is Aatash, Aatash, at inkwire.co. So feel free to send me an email as well.
And we'll put those both in the comment section where we post these videos, just so if anybody else is wanting to find them, we can reach out. We'll make sure to tag you in the videos when they appear, so people can find you as well. So anybody that has any questions or would like an introduction, you know, reach out to me. I'd gladly bridge that gap for you guys. And if I can help in any way, you know, feel free to ask. I love to be involved in any way possible. But thank you so much for joining us today. I look forward to following your guys' journey.
Thank you, Kyle. Yeah, thanks for having me. And I appreciate you having conversations around these topics, which I haven't seen too many folks, talk about them or bring them up. So it's important knowledge for folks. So thanks for doing it, for having me.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no
Have a
problem.
blessed day.
Yeah, you too.